on 15th of November 2022 was the day for a big celebration. The world population became 8 billion. 8 billion of us. Now to give you some perspective, and generally we should celebrate achievements, right? It's a big achievement for the world. It's a big achievement in terms of healthcare, technology, the longevity of life. 8 billion also means 8 billion opportunities, but also 8 billion challenges. We as educators need to come to the forefront to shape the world in many ways. Today, we need to have sustainability as part of the agenda, on top of the agenda. If you're not doing it, you should. Because the world temperature, the climate change, pollution levels is ensuring that a lot of our cities will sink. Are we creating students who will have this thought process to tackle these kind of problems? Are we creating an ecosystem where we talk about conscious living, conscious consumption? Are we talking about these things in our schools? We're talking about a world which is now integrated more than ever before. But what about the future? Do we have a sustainable process as a human race in place where we learn from each other, where we grow together, where 21st century skills as well as sustainability becomes a part of our living? Sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So, you know, if you go to any normal school, you know, when I say normal, I'm trying to say that you go to a government school and things like that, you will find that people have not even heard of it. That is one. So the first aspect of sustainability is somehow we get through to the mass. Elite schools, schools which have good managements, they are still doing their bit. Unfortunately, the percentage of children who are getting educated in this line are minuscule when compared to the rest of the spectrum. So something has to be done to somehow involve all the other stakeholders in this. In NEP, they have created some kind of these nodal schools where students and teachers can come and get some kind of a more kind of exposure to aspects which are normally not available in other schools. Our school is one of them. That is a one step in that direction. So what we have done is, and our campus is referred to as Oxyzone of the city. So what we have done is that we have now created a prayer, 3-line prayer on sustainability. We'll keep our school green and clean. And every assembly, that prayer is repeated. Every class that starts, when the teacher comes, that prayer is said. But what I'm trying to say is that this sustainability, as also preparing for the challenges to come, has to be brought down to the level of the right end user. I hope people get aware of this and do something in that direction. Thank you.
Mr. Shah, 8 billion, big picture everyone talks about, but what about the small picture? What about the micro picture? Does the student really care about that, you know, is it 8 billion or is it 16 billion? Because we are going to be about 10 billion in the next 40 odd years is what the projection is. Does the child really care about it? And what has been your experience with this?
I think our children are more conscious, be it private schools or government schools. Like I have been to hundreds of government schools. I think they are conscious that they don't have to litter. I think we have this perception that some strata of society needs to be told not to do that. So I don't think sustainability is something that they have to think too hard, whether it's a public school or it's a private school. But I think that consciousness, the smaller picture for me is the teachers, is educators, the parents, right? I think we need to start what Sir said, like if we have to put all that we discuss in the conferences into action item, I would say, can we first start a curriculum for our teachers? can we make them conscious of sustainability before even we start talking to children? Because I think children already know a lot. Greta Thunberg is not 30-year-old. She's 19.
So we need to make sure that there is sustainability and sustenance happening in the world. And the schools are probably the way to start, because these are the children who will be carrying forward the torch into the future. How do we impact the teachers? How do we bring about this change? Because you'll be questioned a lot of times that, well, the NEP talks about, the number of hours. There are sustainable development goals that have been decided by the UN. We are all working towards it. We're putting it up on LinkedIn and Facebook. So we're doing enough. But how do we bring about that change?
Really, I think so much of us need to sit down and think about what exactly is my school and what exactly is my campus. Because those walls that we set up around our schools and around our campus and around our homes, and who is family and who is not, the minute we create that, those walls, then numbers like 8 billion doesn't make any sense. Because my school is this, 10 acres or whatever. The minute you start thinking that these boundaries, these walls, and these perimeters are just notional, and we're all living in one world, we're living in one, we're sailing in one boat, that's when I think a lot of change will happen. And for that change to happen, I think you just have to confuse the teachers, right? And what I mean by confuse the teachers is you got to shock them. And by shocking them, essentially what I'm saying is, you start breaking those boundaries. Schools should get out and start collaborating with other schools, left, right, and center. If a parent from another school comes to your school and says, I want to take admission in your school, madam, as a school, do you have the courage, do you have the willingness, do you have the openness and the compassion to say, you know what, aapke baaju mein dusra school hai, and that school is really good. Why don't you put your kid there? You'll save so much of transport money, you'll save so much of petrol, you'll save so much of, you'll reduce carbon footprint. What if a neighboring school calls you and says, today I have 4 teachers absent, and you go like, hey, I have 3 teachers sitting in the, in the staff room. I'm going to send some teachers out up to you. Or what if, a school in the neighborhood starts saying things like, we do maths really well. What can we come and do in your school? I mean, the day you start breaking those walls between, schools, that's when collaboration is going to happen. You need to have courage. You need to, put money where your mouth is. It's nice to have these conversations. But can we get out there and make things happen? Because we need to move from what's in it from me to what does the world want from me today, right? And I think that's when change might happen.
For us, as educators, to make an impact, we will need to collaborate. For us to understand that 60 to 65% of the population of the country is actually associated to schools. Either you're studying at a school, you're teaching at a school, you're a staff member of a school, or you're a parent, you're the media. Whatever be it, you are in some way associated to every school in your locality, etc. What's stopping us, sir?
I think what is stopping us is our ticket punching mentality. I'll just qualify my statement. We have to now somehow sensitize the staff that syllabus, tests, marks, these are things which are inherent, and we feel that अगर हमने जाके वहाँ पे अपना सब कुछ subject पढ़ा दिया और हमारे बच्चों के marks आ गए, so we have done our bit. This is called ticket punching. Sorry, like Manjula ji just said, that ignite that third spark. So we have started sending our students. We have created a thing called the Seva Samiti, whereas we have tried to differentiate between charity and service. So we have tried to send our children all to these old age homes and orphanages, sometimes village schools, sometimes adopting schools, sometimes adopting students of our subordinate staff, which the 11th and 12th are helping them with their studies. So we'll have to now get down to these small things, like this book is doing rounds of atomic habits, James Clear की जो है, जिसमें कि छोटी-छोटी चीजों से बहुत फर्क पड़ेगा.
Everyone is talking about sustainable development goals. Everyone's talking about being green schools. But are we putting it into practice? And my follow-up question to you would be, if you could be the education minister of our country, and I would tell you that define a classroom, a school for me in 2047.
I think, yes, people put it for the marketing purpose more than what they really end up doing. And that's the problem, right? You can't market a bad product for very long. So even if you keep putting it in the brochure year on year, it will not sustain, right? There is a sustainability issue there also. You will have to do good and then it will start sounding great. The problem is, we have been talking about ChatGPT, right? Like I go to ChatGPT and write saying the tagline for a SDG focused school and it will give me 5 lines and I can put it on my brochure website and people will say, I have done enough. But I think we need to do more. What Willie said, and if I was an education minister, I think no walls, no subjects, but skills, right? Schools without the walls, more collaborative. For me, the timetable has to be 6 C's: creativity, critical thinking, collaboration. A child in Hyderabad is learning Japanese over 5G with a school in Japan. I think that's the power we are sitting on. We somehow, because of our financial P&L, we are forgetting about our sustainability P&L, right? The last point I just want to make as a marketer is, we all spoke, Swamiji also spoke about authenticity. More and more marketing is about authenticity. Gone are the days where you believe in advertising. When you see a raw footage on a Instagram, on a social media, you believe that. When people are putting a photo of they in their pajamas in the office, and people are giving more likes and comments to those kind of content. So I think that authenticity that we need to also have as schools is extremely, extremely important. And I think the authenticity will come through collaboration and will come through doing the right things rather just saying the right things. I think.
Really doing the right things rather than just saying the right things. How do we define these right things? Because my child has to get a 99%. My child has to win gold medals in every sport. My child has to be the best public speaker. Even not being able to speak in public is not acceptable. The best musician, the best dancer, the best in everything. But what I forget is that my child is breathing air which has AQI 500 across the country, not just in New Delhi. My child is living in a world which is full of unsustainable material. How do I do the right thing?
So there are 2 things that came to my mind while you asked that question. One is this beautiful principle of the Goodhart's principle. So Dr. Goodhart talks about this principle saying when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Which means when I'm measuring something and that measure became a target. For example, a child's score in 10th standard is a measure of some other target that we think, oh, because he got, high marks in this, he probably is good at the other thing. But what eventually happened is that measure itself became a target that everyone's optimizing to receive that target, and the end outcome and goal does not get achieved. So that's one big problem. So one of the solutions as school leaders and planners we can all do is to start pairing metrics. I want to see 2 things happen at the same time together, which means you want to be good at this, you want to get high marks academically, and you want to be able to also be compassionate, speak to people well, hold your ground, have a point of view, things like that. The problem is here, what gets measured gets done. So if we end up measuring the wrong things, all those things that are getting measured are only getting done, right? So that is what I'm thinking about. And just on the last, just one thing I wanted to say is, as a school, at least what we are thinking over the next couple of years is to bring children into this land of empathy, sensitivity and connection. And we want to tell parents, boss, ye important hai, wo to ho hi jayega, but ye important hai, okay? Because otherwise you as a parent will be in an old age home pretty quickly. Right, thank you.
Awesome. So we have a guiding philosophy where at Jaipuria schools where we talk about SPICE, where S stands for sustainability, P is for possibilities. I is for integrity, C is for collaboration, and E is for empathy. And we actually focus on children to actually develop these skills, to develop it, internalize it. It's important for us to do that. And everything that we do, it actually goes around spice, and it makes a lot of difference. I'd like to leave you with a couple of thoughts before we close this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a world where we suffered for a couple of years with a pandemic. Now the learning part will always be taken care of through technology. It's these social skills, it's the thinking and the emotions and empathy that our children need support with. Please, please pay attention to these things at your schools, at your homes, with your children, because this is something that we will not be able to replicate and will be an irreversible travesty. So please pay attention to that. And the second thing I want you to pay attention to is, and I say this with a very, very broken heart, that a girl was dragged under an automobile in New Delhi, in the capital city. It's not the fault of the person, it's the fault of us as a society where we've not paid attention in our schools to talk about these real issues. We've not spoken about these issues at our schools, in our classrooms, at our homes, where we will be able to raise a better future for our children.